right, so we're going to talk about the progressives today from 1890 to 1920. This is coming mostly out of chapter 21. And so the progressives are about the same time as the populists, were 1890s is when they're getting their start, same time as the populists. Populists, if you remember, were dealing with agricultural issues, helping the farmers. The progressives are kind of coming out of that movement. They came out of the Greenback Party, which had similar ideas as the populists. They wanted inflation, wanted to print out paper money, and the populists, remember, wanted to add silver to the currency. William Jennings Bryan across the gold speech. And so coming out of that, progressives are focused mostly in the cities, trying to help deal with those problems created by urbanization, crime, disease, just overpopulation, all of those issues. And so they are not socialists, meaning they do not want the government to come in and take over businesses, give out welfare checks. They do want a larger government role, and we'll talk about that in a second, but they believe that through their efforts at regulating society, they were going to actually save democracy from socialist movements that were coming on the scene at this point in time. So they believed that increased democracy would solve the problems caused by urbanization. And what we'll talk about is basically giving more power to the people, taking power away from the corrupt politicians, corrupt political bosses, and giving more power out to the people. So they are mostly middle class and mostly urban. They are in both parties. They are in all regions of the country, and they are at all levels of government. Their goals. They basically want, again, they don't want the government to come in and hand out money. They don't want them to help the poor. They want them to regulate, play referee with the Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, and Carnegies, and sort of level the playing field for the working class. So when they say strengthen the state, what they mean is kind of like populists and the Granger laws. They wanted the state, the government, to come in and regulate railroad rates, not hand out checks to people, but regulate industry. And so they're saying we want the state to have more power to regulate industry, to level the playing field, pass some laws to sort of rein in Rockefeller. The government is the only thing big enough and powerful enough to rein in Rockefeller. They wanted to fix society by using the government to curb the power of trusts. They wanted to stem socialist threat by improving the common person's condition of life and labor. So in other words, socialism appeals to those people who are struggling, that working class, that labor movement that is struggling. So if progressives could come in and sort of fix the problems in the cities, then there would be less desire to follow socialist ideas. This man, Robert La Follette, governor of Wisconsin, senator from Wisconsin, wonderful hair, all that kind of stuff, comes up with something called the Wisconsin idea. And in the Wisconsin idea, what he is doing is, they call him Fighting Bob La Follette because he's fighting for the rights of the lower classes. He's trying to take that idea of increasing democracy to solve the problems of society by introducing what's known as a direct primary. We used to basically have politicians, political bosses, boss tweed types, that would sit and meet in a room, and they would handpick somebody to be their candidate. And we've talked about that in the past. So to eliminate some of their, or decrease some of their control over the process, some of those party bosses' control over the process, they be reformers like Fighting Bob La Follette, the guy with the hair. They said, let's have a direct primary, which is what we have today, where we go out and we vote in elections as Republicans to pick a Republican candidate and as Democrats to pick a Democratic candidate. And so what we're doing is we're taking the power out of the hands of the few, the party bosses, and we're giving it to the people in mass. And it's harder for Rockefellers, Carnegies, Vanderbilts to control those politicians when they're not the ones selecting them. Again, we're still fighting for regulating the railroads and decreasing rates and helping farmers out. We want limited campaign spending. We don't want what happened in the 1896 election, where Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and Carnegie sat down and basically worked together to put all their money behind McKinley and get McKinley elected. They want to limit campaign spending. We are still dealing with that in 2015. So still campaign finance laws and working around different organizations and trying to limit the amount of money that goes into elections, so somebody can't buy an election. They want to increase corporate taxes. Tax those corporations, use that money to then go in and help the working class, help the laborer, maybe make the workplace safer. So tax corporations to help the poor. As far as dealing with corruption, again, this is taking the power out of the hands of the few and giving it to the many. We want to set up something called an initiative. An initiative is where we, the people, get to put a measure on a ballot. We get to introduce a law. Typically that's Congress. Well, if Congress, we had the picture up a long time ago about the monopolists controlling the Senate. Senate of the monopolists, by the monopolists, for the monopolists. If we take the power of making laws and give that to the people, then again you're decreasing the control that Rockefellers, Carnegies, Vanderbilts have over the lawmaking process. So an initiative is basically allowing us, the people, to introduce legislation. A referendum is the act of voting on legislation. So sometimes Congress will put a referendum on a ballot, and then we go to the voting place. We're voting for governors, senators, representatives, but we're also voting on certain referendums. Several years ago, Governor Roy Barnes, got rid of the Georgia state flag because it had the rebel flag symbol on it. It was causing lots of controversy, so he just got rid of it. It was very controversial in some parts of Georgia. Sonny Perdue came along and campaigned on the idea that he would give the people of Georgia a referendum on the state flag and let them choose. And he got elected governor on that campaign promise. When it came time to vote on the flag, he gave the people of Georgia a referendum and gave them 3 choices. However, none of them were the choice that Roy Barnes got rid of. So he kind of fooled the people, but allowed us to have a referendum. We had a referendum on the lottery. When we brought the lottery to Georgia, we let the people decide whether they wanted that or not. A recall. Recall starts the idea that when you get elected governor, you get elected senator, if we don't like what you're doing, then we can sign petitions. Registered voters can sign petitions, and we can demand a recall election, and we can therefore make you run for re-election again ahead of time. Like recently, and this is all part of the Wisconsin idea. Recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, the governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, has gone through 2 different recall elections and has won both of them. But the people of Wisconsin, he's a Republican, the Democrats of Wisconsin, have challenged him on a lot of issues, gotten a recall election arranged, and he has won both of those recall elections. In California several years ago, Governor Gray Davis was unpopular. California was having lots of rolling brownouts, lacking enough energy. And he became very unpopular, and so people got together. He was a Democrat. A lot of Republicans and independents got together, arranged for a recall election. And in that recall election, when it was all said and done, Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor in California. So direct primary elections we've already talked about. The Australian ballot we've already talked about. That's that secret ballot so that Boss Tweed can't tell how you're voting. Takes away his power. And direct elections of senators was passed with the 17th Amendment. And it was passed in 1913 is what that says. But direct election of senators, when we wrote the Constitution, we feared the public, and so we basically allowed people to elect the House of Representatives, but senators were chosen by state legislatures, so that we kind of kept the people at a distance. But at this point in time, because senators were handpicked, they were under the control of the Rockefellers, Carnegies, and Vanderbilts much easier, so we decided to do what we do now, and that is let the people vote for Senate. And so we now have direct election of senators, 17th Amendment.